Remarketer. Empowering realtors.
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining me today. So we're going to be looking at the CMA tool today, but from a different perspective. So last time that we talked about this tool, I told you about how you could use this tool to generate instant comparative market analysis reports, so that you could use it as a tool for better realizing the potential of the properties that you're taking your clients out to showings to. So as a buyer representative, you would also be able to use this tool to help your clients make better decisions and more informed decisions. So that was a good discussion that we had at the time. Now I want to take you back to the tool again, but this time from the seller's perspective. So when you want to price your property to place it on the market for sale. So it's ironic to see that once again we're at a point in the real estate market that pricing seems to be a very key factor determining the possibility and ability for the property to sell. It's always been a key factor, and pricing is the most important strategic factor for placing the property in the market. And you see a lot of agents throughout the years that have different policies regarding the pricing of the property. Some would like to price it, especially when the markets are a little bit heated. They'd like to price it lower than what the market valuation looks like, in order to be able to lure in some more potential buyers, to create the hype and be able to generate more it's not interest, but generate more hype around the property, in order to be able to get more the interested buyers to bid higher. That specifically works in a blind bidding environment, something that's practiced here in Ontario, that people don't know what's going on. Now, talk about this specific fact, that this might be something that might be coming to an end in the near future. That there could be rules that would mandate for an open bidding system, where people would know how other bidders are also bidding for the same property. In that case, price would even make more of an important decision-making factor, because you can't really hide the offers that are being presented for the property. But that's been one strategy for many of the agents out there. There's also the other strategy for people coming from the other side of the spectrum, where they would like to leave some room for negotiation, where people come in and you'd be able to accept offers that are a little bit lower. This one is a little bit more difficult in the market, because it would, especially in the markets that we're way above a comfortable affordability zone, where people don't really look at properties that are overpriced, and overpriced might be a couple of, probably 10% would shoot the price out of the range of many buyers at a certain point, at a certain price point. So it can be even more tricky in terms of having a property that's priced over what it's valued for, and what you would be willing to accept as the seller representative. In a market that's pretty much overpriced, and affordability can be difficult in the market. So either way, we're looking at a certain risk factor, something that can at the end of the day, sometimes be work to our advantage, and provide us some better opportunities. but most of the times we usually end where we're supposed to have started from, meaning that we usually get the market price, the market value for the property. Supply and demand is always a key factor in real estate, and when we have a lot of demand compared to supply, that's when we have this seller's market. We obviously have the ability to push the price a little bit higher. On the other end, we don't have the same opportunity when we have less demand in respect to the supply that we have in the market, and that would make the system would make the prices a little bit less fluid, if you want to say, in terms of what the buyers would be able to offer for the property. So either case, it's always important to know where we should be landing, and the safest bet always is to price right in order to understand what the real value of the property is, what the real expectation should look like, and we should price it right around that price point where everything makes sense. Either we're in a seller's market or a buyer's market. Either way, we're going to be able to face we're definitely going to be able to benefit from the availability, or be at a risk of not enough demand for the property. That's the the nature of the market at any given time. But when you have priced the property correctly, you are lowering that risk factor by a lot. Now, this is a big problem these days. You see a lot of properties that have been listed on the market and are just sitting there and collecting dust for a long time. You've been marked properties that have been, marked down by several $100,000 after being listed and relisted and relisted and relisted several times in the market. And that is sad. The demand is there. People are going to buy the property, but the only thing was that the property wasn't priced right. The expectation of the seller wasn't right as well. I do understand, and the situation that a lot of real estate agents is that it's hard, and especially in the past few months, it's been really hard for us for the agents to be able to persuade the buyers that the days of the January, February, March of 2022 are over, and that hype wasn't real there. That hype was something that overvalued a lot of properties that sold, and we need to lower and we need to adjust our expectations according to the nature of the market. Otherwise, it is going to have a backlash, and our property is just going to sit on the market, and that is going to be a negative effect on top of all the other negative effects that are forcing the prices to go down at the time. So let's go ahead and make an analytical and informed approach towards pricing. I'm not just going to talk about CMA. I'm also going to show you the market reports and market statistics as well, in order for us to be able to see how all the tools that are available during Marketer can help you really make that informed decision. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the market statistics. So, we've got quite a bit of properties available here on your property search, and you can just go ahead and look at different pockets here. So let me just zoom in a little bit here, and I'm looking at this pocket, for instance, and I think it's around Vaughan time. So you can easily see that we have instant statistics right around here. So these properties that fit in this pane right here. So you can see the properties in this neighborhood, more or less, the average sold price is $1.3 million. So you can immediately see where all these properties are standing. Let me go ahead and configure some of these filters here. So I'm looking at detached properties, for example, And let's not filter any further. So we're just looking at detached properties at the moment, and we're going neighborhood to neighborhood. So let's go ahead and browse a little bit further south. And you can see, for instance, here we're looking at average sold price of $1.6 million. The average DOM is 17 days. Let's pan across here. We're right about 1.6 again. So let's go further towards the east. We're now at 1.8. 1.86 almost, with the average DOM of 30 days, for instance. So you can see that I'm looking at more expensive neighborhoods now, and you can see that that also reflects in the DOM as well. So we are now at an average of $2 million. So this is one part of what you have available on your website, where you can just quickly have a very fast and rough ballpark on what we're looking at, generally speaking. So for instance, if I go ahead and look at Hillcrest Village here, just by zooming on the area, we're going to be able to see a quick average sold price right there. So this is one very fast and easy way that as you're spanning across the different neighborhoods, you could quickly see what the average sold price of that area is with the DOM. So this is one tool that you have, and you could just use it with your client when you're browsing through properties. You could just quickly see the areas, and how the statistics change there. Now, let's go back into the system and take a look at some further information, something that's a little bit more in detail. So I'm going to go to the City Market Watch for this purpose, and we're going to take a look at some of the cities here. So for example, let's go ahead and say that I want to look at Toronto C15, or let's go ahead and look at Richmond Hill. So I will pull up Richmond Hill, and the market statistics are going to show up for me here. So the first thing that you would need to utilize this tool for is to be able to help shape the expectation of the seller. So that's one of the challenges that we have. So right off the bat, you're going to be able to show them that the property, the market is almost balanced here. So that's a good thing. So we do have demand available. But we have to look at the reality of the market. So one of the things that we can immediately show them is that you can see that the hype that we'd had here in January and February of 2022, Jan, Feb, March of 2022, the prices have been really hyped up. And we had, a steep incline in prices at the time. And since then, we have a steady decline in the average sold prices of Richmond Hill, for instance. We can even be more specific. If we're looking at a detached property, I can go ahead and select detached property, and we can see the same here as well. Now, the good news for the seller is that we've also passed the very downturn that we had here a few months ago right here as well. So they can see the ups and downs of the market, and they can see where the market stands right now. So comparing to the same point last year, we are still lower. So we're about 6% lower than last year. So showing these statistics to your clients can help them realize where we're standing. And you should also show them some examples of properties that have been just sitting in the market just because they have priced not according to the realities of the market. And that translates into lost opportunity, because you can see if a property was listed here at a wrong price and they didn't sell, now they would have to list lower because the opportunity there has gone. So we need to realize that we have to be pricing the property properly in order to be able to sell. Otherwise, we'll just sit in the market, and then we'll, if the market goes further down, we just have to, take the price further down, and that will reflect badly in the eyes of the potential buyers down the road as well. When they see a property that hasn't been able to sell, that usually shows that, either the property isn't good enough or the seller is not motivated enough, and both are negative points for the user. But one of the charts that I really like to use when you want to shape the expectation of the buyers is this market activity chart. So you can easily show them, markets are very different today compared to what they were last year. So that's an immediate understanding for them. It's an eye opener. They can see what's going on here, and they can see that the supply and demand that we had last year is very different from what we have today. However, the worst seems to have passed. You see here, you see the gap that we had between supply and demand here. So sales have declined, and then since June and July of 2022, they have declined a little bit further, but pretty much have stayed stable. On the other hand, supply has fallen rapidly, so we have less and less supply available, and that would mean that when we have less supply. So at this point, you can see that we have the shortest gap between supply and demand, and that's where we have the jump in the price right here. So you can see the effect. You can see the immediate effect right there. So as soon as you have supply, closing the gap between supply and demand, you have a jump in the price. Obviously, there's less in the market with the same demand, pretty much the same demand, and people would be, willing to offer more. And we can see that the gap is closing again. So that's a good sign for a seller, a potential seller that would want to, sell the property today. And we can see that the supply is moving downwards, where prices are, the demand is pretty much staying stable right here. So this is a very, very good graph for you to present your client with, and talk about the market a little bit, and see where we're standing right now in the market. So if supply were going up and demand were going down, we'd have to be ready for the toughest situation. Right now, what the situation looks like is that demand is there. Pretty much demand has hit pretty much rock bottom, if you want to say, but supply is still going down further and further down, and that's a positive sign for sellers, if you want to say, and a negative sign for the buyers. And it shows in the indicator here as well. We're slowly creeping back up towards the seller's market right there. So it all depends on how all the other dynamics in the market play, the mortgage rates, the inflation, all of that play a big role in the housing market, and how supply and demand shapes up. But at least with this, we have a current view. We have a current, we have a proper view of the current situation right here. So, you have all the other indicators here as well. So, for example, we have the months of inventory for detached properties in Richmond Hill, which is, it still looks like a healthy months of inventory. Yeah, so gone are the days that, months of inventory was below 1 month, and, people would sell their properties within days. That wasn't realistic. But this is pretty much a normal day in generally speaking, when you're looking at real estate industry. Now, this is interesting as well. Sold price to list price is 100%. So you can see here and how this changes from the days that we have a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. So this is where we have the crazy days with the sold over asking days. When during those days you would look at this number right here, sold price to list price, you'd look at 110, 115, 120%. So you'd even see 20% over asking. And for a market that we're sitting at around $2 million, 20% is $400,000. So that's a crazy amount to be willing to pay for a property over what's been asking. Now, during those days, remember, a lot of the agents would price low in order to end high. So in reality, we'd still be looking at maybe 5-6% over what the valuation would be, because usually the prices were about 10% lower than what the actual market value would look like at the time. So even at that time, even though it looked like I've sold 20% over asking, the reality was that I've sold maybe 5% over what the value would have been. So it's not realistic again during those times. But that would be the number. It would be reflective of the of the um, uh, of the market at the time. Now, later on, when we have this sharp decline here, this is usually the hardest place. This is where the sellers haven't really realized what the reality of the market looks like at the time. And a lot of the properties would be selling below what the listing price would be. So during those times, you'd see, 90%, 95%. And that is usually when, the prices are, properties are priced at a point where the market would demand lower than that, and negotiations happen, and some of the properties that are, some of the sellers that are willing to sell would sell at lower prices compared to the listing price. At this point, you can see that the sold to list price is right at par, 100%. What does that tell you? It tells you that the market has corrected itself in terms of expectation, right? So the expectations are now where there should be, and sellers are willing to offer their properties at the right uh, uh, price. So this is what I was trying to get at. This is what I wanted to show you. So when we come to a point that sellers and buyers can meet on the price point, and the property has been priced right, then we can see that the market looks like a healthier market. Now we can see that the prices will start to adjust, to level. So that's where we can expect that things are a little bit more in touch with reality, and you can forecast your sales experience a little bit. Compared to the times that you didn't know, you would price a property and you might sell at way more than that or way lower than that, and you just didn't know what the outcome is going to be, and that would be the hardest thing. And when a seller doesn't really know what's going to happen and what kind of offers you're going to get, you're still going to be in an awkward position in both ends of the spectrum. So imagine yourself, listing a property for 1.5, and you start getting uh, um, offers for 1.2. How do you justify that to your client? The same thing is as goes for when you start getting offers for 1.8 and 1.9. The seller might again question that, have we priced the property right? It might be even worth more than that. So it's questionable. It's not always celebrated. So we really need to be able to price where we can then justify the offers that we get, and we can expect the kind of offers that we can get. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of properties using the CMA module. Now, the CMA module is an instant uh, report generator for you. It's a good automated tool that you can really play around with. So the good thing about this tool is that you can really sit down and throw properties at it. So you can take 10 different properties and start generating CMAs one after another, and really analyze and see how different properties have sold in the market. So the best bet for you is to take some of the most recent properties in the neighborhood that have sold and try to analyze them. Now, I'm taking a few properties. I'm just taking a few properties here to demonstrate the different factors that are available in uh, the CMA report. And then I'll show you how you can use the CMA to start generating some insights. So you do have your experience, obviously, and with the information that you can also present, you could definitely shape your expectations, shape your strategy, if you want to say, together with the knowledge and experience that you have and the understanding of the currency of the market that you have, and be able to present the same numbers and statistics that you're basing your analysis on to your clients. So this tool can also be used to present your school of thought to your client, and it can better shape their expectation in there as well. So let's take a look at this property, for instance. I just took one property and I threw it in there. It just takes a few seconds for me to have a CMA here, and we can just take this and roll it further to be able to generate some more insight in there. So right off the bat here, you can see that the property is on the market. So this is newly listed on the market, and it's been listed for 1.729. It was purchased in 2017 for one. It was listed for 1.15, and it sold for 1.05. So almost $100,000, $70,000 less than asking price at the time. You remember the situation back in 2017, so you can explain to your client about what the situation used to be in 2017. We again had a dip after the heat of the 2000s, 16 market, and 2017 used to be a slow market. You can see that reflected in the sold price to list price here as well. So after 57 days, so it was sitting on the market for 57 days, and it finally sold for less than what it was asking for. So you can see that the situation of the market at the time wasn't too favorable to the seller as well. So is the time now. A good thing that the tool provides you is a time-adjusted estimate that it calculates for you. This is, a big, huge algorithm that takes into consideration all the fluctuations since the last sale, so since 2017, when this property was sold, and it applies all that fluctuation of the price up until today onto this price here. And you can see that it lands at 1.45, so almost $1.5 million. The property has been listed at 1.729. Is that a good thing? Maybe not. So we'd have to take a closer look at the property. The only thing that you have to make sure that you consider is that has there been major improvements to the property since the time that it was sold? So if there's been major improvements to the property since that time, then yes, we would expect for a higher selling price compared to what the time adjusted estimate is suggesting to you. But if the same property is on the market today, this could be a little bit alarming because it could be priced at a higher price in the market than the sellers would be willing to pay. Let's take a look a little bit further and see if we have other evidence to support that as well. So the first thing that you could look at this, you can see from here is the detached properties in Vaughan within 1 kilometer of the subject property. So within 1 kilometer of this property that we're looking at, most of the properties are selling at 1.359. So the property is priced way above the average. Again, it might be worth it looking at the property itself and considering all the factors. It could be a much larger lot compared to other properties that have sold in the 1 kilometer radius. It could be a newer property, or it could have some other qualities that would justify this price. But still, yet again, we land on a flag here, a red flag here. So we are priced at above the average sold price right there. So we have the average DOM 23. Remember, the DOM here is not a cumulative. So properties might have listed and relisted several times. And the last time that they were sold, the average DOM was 23. So you have properties that are in the market for 70, 80, 90 days these days. The average price year to year has decreased by 10%. So whatever we were able to sell last year, we are able to sell almost 9% lower than that this year. So that's again something to consider as well. So if I have a neighbor whose house is really similar to mine and they sold, let's say, a year ago for 1.7 million, we should be looking at 10% lower than that. So that's $170,000 lower than that, which is going to bring us at around 1.5 million there as well. So again, these are other indicators that your client should realize and be able to shape their expectation according to the reality of the market. This is the reality of the market. So this is the subject property, and we have the different factors of the property to compare to other comparable sold properties here. But a quick glance here shows me again a different the same story here. So other properties in the area are selling for 1.4, 1.3, 1.5, 1.56. So again, not a really good sign here. You can look at the property's pictures and further details by clicking on that MLS number there, so you could take a look at it. So maybe this is a newly renovated property, and it might be worth the extra price. But again, remember that we are competing against much cheaper properties, and in the situation in the market that we are right now, it could make things harder for us, because remember, affordability is not something that you could just stretch. Just because the property might be worth it. So people are going to push. And it seems that we're up against some real competition here. So let me compare it to this property here, for instance. So let's say, wait a second, let's say this. So this one sold in December. This one sold in November. So this is the freshest sale that is close by. So if we want to take a look at it, we can also take a look at it and, quickly have a little comparison here as well. So yes, obviously I can see that the other property is in a better shape. And if this property was able to sell at $1.4 million, then this one would be worth more. But $300,000 more, that's up to question. So again, it might be worth it, but it's up against competition. So that's always something to consider. Then we have other competing properties. So these are the properties that are right now in the market competing with these properties. And again, we're not looking at a good story here. We have much lower prices available here. And we have these properties that are available for lower prices, 1.588, 1.538. So if you want to take a look at each one of them, you can just quickly have a quick glance at each one of these properties here as well. So this is a corner lot, and we can see that it's in a better shape than the other one that we were looking at. But again, it needs some upgrades there. But again, when you're looking at the market, the buyers, usually what they do is that they look at the potential of the property as well. So if they can purchase a property at $200,000 and $300,000 lower than anything else that's on the market, they might consider having their own renovations in the market, in the property afterwards. So these are all the different factors to consider. Looking at the other properties that are sold in the neighborhood on the same street, basically. So these are the exact same. The neighbors that we might be looking at. So This is where I'm guessing that the asking price is coming from. The neighbors have sold for 1.8, 1.7, 1.7, and we've got one which is back in 2019, so forget about that one. So 2021, 2021, and May 2022. So now you know what the story is. The expectation of the seller is high because their neighbors sold at much higher prices, but they sold in a different era. So we need to understand that. And you can see, for instance, here, this one was sold at 113% of the asking price. The asking price was 1.5 and it sold for 1.7. This one, the asking price was 1.7 and it sold for 1.85. That's 109% of the asking price. This one was listed at 171,720,000 and it sold at 1.7, 99% of the asking price. This is the beginning of the downturn. And you saw that in the graphs that I showed you right before that as well. So we can see the situation much better here. You can take some of the recently sold properties. So for example, I might take this property now. So let's go ahead and take this one. I just need the MLS number and I'm going to do another CMA. So you can see how I can roll it forward. So I'm taking some of the most recent properties sold in the neighborhood and I'm looking at that. So here, this property was listed at 1.549. It was terminated and then relisted at 1.499 and then it sold for 1.419. So you can see that it came from 1.55 to 1.42, right? So you can see that it was forced to sell at a much lower price in 2 months when it was listed, relisted, and finally sold. So you can see that we had to stop at a point where the offers would be realistic. And the 1.4s and the 1.5s, that's where we used to be there. So you can take another one. Let's say, for instance, this one, which was sold in November. We're going to take this one and we can go ahead and do another CMA there. This one was sold back in 2010 and then it was listed in 2022, November. 1.55, it sold for 1.48. So you see the expectation was to sell around 1.5 and they got the offer and they sold it in 5 days. So you can see that the property sells. The property will sell if it's priced right and if the expectation is right there. So you can take this and roll forward and look at more and more of the properties in order to be able to come to a conclusion. Now, if you have your own property and this was listed before and you want to list it now, you can also use this tool. You can either type in the address and find it, or if you could just quickly find the MLS number of the last time the property was sold and just use the MLS number in there. So let's go ahead and check out some of the sold properties. So no, I'm going to use one of the active properties. Let's hope that I can get lucky and find some with some considerable history. So let's just take this one, for instance. So let's imagine this property is not listed and nope, not good enough. Let me find another one. Let's take this one. So you see how easy it is? I just, find properties and punch it in and see what I can find. Okay, this one seems like a better option. So you see the property has been listed in 2021, 1.88, terminated. July 2021, sold for 1.95. Sorry, sold for 1.8. It was listed for 1.95 and it sold for 1.8. So it finally sold at around 1.8, but again, almost $100,000 less than what it seemed to be the expectation at the time there. So it sold in July 2021 for 1.8. Now it is listed again on the market for 2.2. After 24 days, it was terminated. They didn't get any offers. And now it's on the market again, listed at 1.998, and they are hoping to be able to sell this property. But look at the time adjusted estimate, 1.78. Unfortunately, we're looking at the same story again. So if I were to list this property, I would really have to sit down and talk a hard talk with my client and tell them that, unless there's been considerable improvement to the property, that it puts it in a different, different portion of the market, uh, this doesn't look good. Most probably, I'm not going to be able to get to that, because the 1.8 that I got in 2021 translates into 1.78, which is almost the same price that I paid for it, a little bit lower. And looking at the situation in the market, it might be different. Now, looking further down, I can see that I'm in an expensive neighborhood. So at least I'm among much more expensive properties. But this property is not the $3 million property. It's got potentials. And during this times of the market, people aren't really paying a lot of money for potentials. It's about what I can afford to live in right now, and it's not about uh, buying a property and investing in the property at the moment, because numbers don't add up at the time. So this isn't going to be an easy sell in this kind of market, especially at that kind of a price point. So unfortunately, it seems like this property is going to look, um, it's going to have a hard time selling. Now, we have one property in the near proximity that sold for 1.8. It was listed for 1.75, and it sold for 1.8. Let's take a look at this property here. Similar bungalow, not a lot going on in the back, and not a lot going on inside, apparently. So look at the other factors. So for instance, the lot, you can see that it's a big lot, 53 by 140, much bigger than this one. Looking at 50 by 120, which is pretty much the same as this one, we're looking at 1.6. So even this property, which is much newer and a two-story, sold for 2.2. So selling this property at $2 million seems far-fetched. So you can see what happens here. If you price it wrong, this property most probably is going to terminate again and again until you come to your senses and start selling at the right price. Now, if the market goes up, you might win. But if the market goes down from this point, you will lose this opportunity. So if you've had the opportunity to sell for 1.78, you might have been able to get it. Somebody got it. This guy got it. They priced it at 1.75. So this property was priced right, and it sold at 104% of the asking price. It sold for 1.818, right? This one priced it at 1.8 and sold for 89% of the asking price, so 1.6. So you can see the property that's priced right will get the offers and will sell above asking, even in this market. December 8th, last week. So that shows you the importance of making sure, especially in the market situation in the market that we have right now, to come right on the top, on the head of the nail, basically, with the pricing of your properties. Looking at other competing properties, so you can see what other competing properties look like. If we're looking at bungalows only, we're again seeing tough competition. You can definitely match the style if you like. So if I go ahead and check the style here, it's going to take away all the two stories and stuff. So it'll show you only bungalows, for instance, so we can see what's going on there. Obviously, this big price point here is the big, huge lot that we're looking at right here, and maybe some other factors to look at. And these are sold on the same street. So July 2021, 1.8 from a list price of 1.94. So that's the same property basically when we were selling at this time right here. So you can see, the how the CMA can help you generate some insight, and you can just quickly hop from one property to another property, and find the stories and be able to tell the stories to your client in order to be able to shape the expectation properly. And once you do, you're able to price the property right, not under pressure from the seller to price it at a point where at the end of the day they're going to point the finger at you. You were not able to sell it. It's not you who are selling the property. It's the offering on the market that has to be correct in order to be able to attract buyers there. So this would be a good example for you to see why some of the properties out there are just sitting and not selling at the time. You might get away with a wrong price in a market where there's a lot of demand and people would just buy anything at any price. But again, you might not have been able to capture the full potential of the property. So you might have listed it at such a low price that even though you might have sold it over asking, it's still much less than what people would have been willing to pay for the property. You're targeting a different segment here. So $2 million, for instance, in Toronto right now, and $1 million in a lot of other cities is a break point. So right around that point, you're looking at a very different audience. So if you sell a property at 1.98, you're looking at a very different segment of the market compared to the property that sells at 2.2, for instance. Those are very different demographics. The nature of the mortgage that you can afford is very different, even though you're just $200,000 apart. The $1 million price point, for instance, is a breaking point. So, I mean, if you're right around those numbers, you really have to be careful to make sure that you hit the spot right. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at a very different audience that might not offer what your property is worth to you. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're targeting the the higher spectrum of the market, they might not consider your property because they have better options in that segment of the market. So you really have to consider all of these factors, and this is a good tool for you to be able to pull out all the different stories. It doesn't take you any time. You can just pull up 15 different CMAs and find 2 or 3 of them that you can really explain what happened to a property in the immediate market, so that you can tell that story to your client and be able to shape the expectation properly. Awesome. Great. So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover right now. I hope this has been informative for you. I don't see any questions coming in. So if you do come up with any questions, please send it our way. We would be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Go ahead and use these tools, the market stats, the search option, the CMA option. These are all tools that come hand in hand for you to be able to, to deliver that service and the knowledge that you have to your clients. All right, I'm going to stop here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Have a good day.